How's it going, everybody? A robot being sent into space here. So today, we're taking a look back at Harman Smith once again. I know, I've almost... it's almost kind of like I've been doing back-to-back videos about fucking Harman Smith, but I mean, come on. It hasn't exactly been a particularly eventful couple weeks outside of the Nintendo Direct that happened recently, which, funnily enough, Harman Smith made an entire video basically, claiming that everyone's stating that Nintendo Direct was happening soon, we're all lying about it, and then literally on that same exact fucking day, the Nintendo Direct happened, so yeah, that video didn't age well, but hey, at least I can give credit where credit is due. At least Harman Smith has the balls to still keep that video up, so yeah, that's really the nicest thing that I can even say about this man. But apparently he's still crying about fucking Starfield to this day, so then today we're taking a look at, well, another video of him trying to basically talk Starfield down as if it's like the worst fucking game in human existence. So without further ado, let us sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, and let's just get ready to lose some brain cells, I guess.
It's been, what, a couple of days now? Is it all right? Is it acceptable to come out and finally admit that Starfield was not a very good video game?
Jesus Christ, 10 seconds in and I'm already being reminded of like that one guy that made that flaccid fucking Elden Ring take like a little over a month ago.
So ultimately, the point here is this. Now that it's been a year, now that the dust has settled, I think that people should finally be able to come out and admit that at the end of the day, they didn't like the game.
You guys remember that guy? Yeah, funnily enough, I checked on that guy's channel, and pretty much everything except for like 2 videos on his channel are completely gone. And yes, that also includes that flaccid Elden Ring video that he ended up making. And I tried looking through the guy's, like, community posts, no mention of it, like, just, like, almost everything on that man's channel is just purged for some reason. Although, to be fair, I don't blame him. After all, about, like, a week after I had actually uploaded that video, I found out that that guy is just a genuinely fucking disgusting person that really shouldn't be given the light of day. Who knows, maybe I'll make an entire video talking about him and the people that he's associated with. That would be funny.
That it's filled with glitches, that the pacing is terrible, the general gameplay loop is terrible, the engine is terrible, the mechanics are terrible, the writing is terrible, the character models are terrible, the visuals are terrible, gunplay, the variety. Like, this is a complete disaster in every way, shape, and form.
Listen, I'm just going to put it this way. I wouldn't exactly say that all those things are even terrible and full of glitches. I have yet to come across any kinds of, like, major glitches within Starfield, surprisingly enough. I mean, for a Bethesda game, it is surprisingly bug-free, although, who knows, maybe I just haven't made it far enough in for me to really have encountered anything too major. But, like, honestly, like, my biggest complaint when it actually comes to Starfield is honestly just the fact that the performance, on PC is just a little bit lacking, at least in my personal opinion. But, like, outside of that, I've been having a decent amount of fun with it, especially since it's, like, the first, like, Bethesda game that I played in, like, almost, like, 4 years at this point? Like, Jesus Christ, I feel like a fossil even saying that, but yeah, I'm not even joking about that shit. But yeah, Starfield is pretty good. The overall, like, game looks pretty nice. The gameplay loop is pretty, decently fun. And when it comes to, like, the writing and the dialogue, I mean, like, it's Bethesda games. So, I mean, like, you can't exactly expect, like, Oscar-level, like, voice acting or anything along those lines. But it's at least good enough to the point where it isn't, like, grating. So, yeah, I wouldn't exactly say it's terrible. It's pretty much about on par with most other Bethesda titles.
And as of right now, in spite of a handful of, like, middling review scores, nobody really wants to admit it. Everybody, like, bent over backwards trying to pretend that Tears of the Kingdom was a disappointment and one of the worst games ever made. But, like, when Starfield comes out, is objectively a complete disaster,
And I would genuinely like to see a source on how it's an objective, like, terrible disaster. You want to know what's extremely funny? Someone that I'm subscribed to ended up, like, commenting on, like, my last Harman Smith video, and actually brought up a pretty decent point that he also voices within some of his videos on Harman Smith. But, like, Harman Smith, like, the main games that he usually trashes on are, like, newer releases that don't have, like, any Switch ports whatsoever. And he honestly brings up a pretty decent point that probably the main reason that Harman Smith trashes on a lot of these games is because of the fact that they aren't available on Switch, and he's just jealous that everybody else except for him gets to play all these new and exciting games that honestly just wouldn't even be able to run on the Switch. But of course, since he forcefully limits himself to only being able to use Nintendo hardware, he's pretty much limited in terms of, like, the kinds of games that he can play.
Failure in every way, shape, and form. This is a mod of Skyrim, essentially. Like, when this game comes out, it is as underwhelming, as disappointing, and as boring as it is. Why exactly is there not fan outrage?
Well, you see, the answer is within one particular key word, and that is, of course, fan. Fans are enjoying Starfield. They're having fun with the game, myself included. So I hate to break it to you, Harman Smith, but not everyone is a fucking raging Nintendo fanboy like yourself. Like, everybody that is, like, you know, having fun with Starfield isn't, like, secretly a closeted Nintendo fan cuck like yourself, and is just trying to pretend to enjoy games that aren't available on Nintendo hardware. Like, there are, in fact, people that just genuinely enjoy newer releases, and especially people that enjoy games like Starfield.
Where exactly is the backlash? Where exactly is the controversy? Why aren't people refunding this game en masse, you know, selling their Xboxes, ending their Xbox Game Pass subscriptions, you know, buying Nintendo Switch, like, getting away from Bethesda and their nonsense?
Listen, I guarantee you the only kinds of people that would actually do anything like that would be people like, you know, fucking Babyface, who had a goddamn crybaby meltdown over the fact that pronouns existed in Starfield.
Fucking pronouns!
People like him are probably the only types of people that I could potentially imagine to be the kinds of people who would unironically, like, refund Starfield and completely sell, like, whatever console that they played Starfield on in order to just run to a different console because they are just so terrified of the English language. I highly doubt that there is really any game that is going to come out that is going to be bad enough for people to unironically not just refund, you know, that particular game, but also decide to completely jump ship from their preferred platform to what is pretty much arguably a much inferior platform like what Nintendo has to offer.
It didn't take a genius to predict that this would happen, right? You know, I told you guys over and over again going into this game isn't going to be that great. It's going to be underwhelming. It's going to have, you know, Todd lied about everything. There were all these red flags, all these situations, all these issues, right? There were all these problems with this game that nobody wanted to talk about or address at all.
Listen, there are in fact people, you know, criticizing the game and actually giving, you know, proper critique, and they aren't just like melting down over like the most first world problems. But like people do, like I mentioned before, like one of my biggest complaints when it comes to Starfield is that sometimes performance is extremely lacking, and honestly I'm hoping that there is an update that kind of fixes that for PC. Like at the end of the day, like people do in fact have their own different issues with Starfield, but they're still able to enjoy the game regardless. That is what being a fan is all about, in my personal opinion. Like, in order to really be a fan of something, in my personal opinion, you have to also be willing to criticize the thing that you are in fact a fan of. Which, well, pretty much separates the fans from the fanboys. Fanboys are ones that completely disregard any kind of legitimate critique of the things that they are fans of, and will quite literally try to pretty much defend tooth and nail even the fucking dumbest decisions that, like, whatever they're a fan of has decided to do. Like, that's the main difference, at least from what I've seen.
All anybody wanted to do was just pretend, you know, leading up to release, that this was a Game of the Year contender, that this was going to be a system seller for Xbox, that this was going to be the game that put Bethesda back on the map, that made them great, that really showed Nintendo who's boss.
Once again, I have never seen a single solitary soul, outside of yourself, funnily enough, who, you know, has ever made such bold claims. Like, I highly doubt that there was anyone, outside of maybe a few insane lunatics, that were going out of their way to try and claim that, like, Starfield would be a system seller for Xbox. Like, that's honestly a funny as fuck claim. But, like, honestly, probably the only thing that you might be, like, somewhat correct about is, like, you know, the whole entire thing of, like, Starfield being, like, the game that would put Bethesda back on the map, which, in a way, I would definitely say that it kind of has, although Bethesda, you know, I mean, was already pretty, you know, well known to begin with. But, like, I guess, like, in terms of, like, you know, putting Bethesda back on the map, I guess it's more or less in the sense of, like, Starfield is, like, the first, like, you know, original IP that Bethesda, you know, has decided to kind of, like, you know, come out with in, like, what'd they say, like 20 years or something like that, which, Jesus fucking Christ, that is terrifying to think about. But, like, you know, that's probably, like, the only thing that I would say that you might be partially even correct about there, Harman, and that is, of course, you know, people claiming that it would put Bethesda back on the map because, once again, first original IP in over 20 years from Bethesda, and I would, in fact, state that, well, I mean, Bethesda did pretty good when it came to Starfield, at least once again, in my personal opinion.
Like, prove that Bethesda can still put out good, high-quality, open-world RPG content. You know, like, this was going to be the next evolution of that genre. This was going to leave everything else in the dust. Like, Bethesda was going to bring forth the next generation in video games. Like, this was going to be one of the best games ever made. And what happens? It comes out, nobody cares for it, everybody's just kind of playing through it because they don't do anything else, they have no hobbies, they have no interests, they don't play better games, which there are like dozens of examples this year alone.
Or, and hear me out here, what actually happened is that there were quite a few people that did in fact enjoy Starfield. A lot of people were talking about Starfield very positively, and of course a handful of idiots that were talking about it negatively for the dumbest of reasons. And people are still playing it because, well, what do you know, they're having fun with the game, and they enjoy the game, and they aren't, like, pretending to enjoy it. I guarantee you that if people weren't enjoying a game, then they probably would not only, like, not even be talking about it to begin with, but they probably wouldn't still be playing it.
They don't read, they don't have any, like, real lives. All they do is just wait for the next major video game announcement, like next video game to come out, and then they'll just play that.
Projection detected. Opinion rejected.
You know, in spite of the fact these games have stopped being good a long time ago, right? Like, there is no defending the decline in quality from Bethesda, but nobody wants to admit it. You know, like, how exactly can a company put out something as broken and as unfinished as Fallout 4, and seriously, not have people just stop supporting the company?
First of all, Harman Smith, you're thinking of Fallout 76, not Fallout 4. Fallout 4 was actually released as a pretty decently solid product. Probably one of the last decently solid products that Bethesda released before Fallout fucking 76. And yeah, I can definitely imagine that a lot of people would have probably lost a bit of trust when it comes to Bethesda with Fallout 76. But I will in fact state that they definitely, at least hopefully, regained a little bit of that with the release of Starfield, because Starfield, once again, is extremely solid.
Like, why was that not, like, the moment that people realized that, like, Bethesda had jumped the shark? You know, Fallout 4, or for that matter, Fallout 3, which in and of itself is nice to point. Like, I remember when people said Fallout 3 was, like, one of the best games ever made, right? Like, unlike Starfield, that game did get the critical acclaim, it did get the sales, it did get the hype cycle, right? That game was a major milestone for downplaying Nintendo Wii games around that time. Right?
I guarantee you, the only reason why he's deciding to state this is just because of the fact that Fallout 3 ended up winning Game of the Year during the year that it ended up coming out. And, well, if he were to try and state otherwise, then of course he would end up looking like a fucking idiot by his own logic.
Like, Starfield came out this week. Like, what did I do instead? You know, I was doing stuff. You know, I was writing. I was reading One Piece. I was playing Advance Wars, Hollow Knight, countless other games. You know, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, which is still better than anything Bethesda ever put out.
You know, I wouldn't exactly consider any of those things to really be anything, like, actually impactful. I mean, Starfield comes out. What did I do? I just stayed inside and decided to continue dicking around with my fucking Nintendo Switch. You know, I wouldn't exactly say any of that is commendable by any fucking stretch of the definition, my guy.
Like, I was playing real stuff, you know, real high-quality product, like, far beyond anything that non-Nintendo gamers have ever played. And it's just like, why exactly do we have to do this every time? Like, why exactly do I have to tell you that, like, Starfield isn't going to be good, and then, like, have my opinion be validated, and then, like, have everyone just move on to the next thing? And that is what's happening right now, is that, like, all anybody's doing is getting excited for the next thing. And right now, I don't think there's really anything this year that, like, people can fall back on. Like, I think what people are going to do this year is, like, pretend that they're just going to, like, replay Baldur's Gate 3 over and over and over again, and, like, you know, get to, like, every possible, like, sexual degenerate, like, situation they possibly can.
Jesus fucking Christ. He is still coping about Baldur's Gate 3. You know what? I am 100% hoping that Baldur's Gate 3 wins Game of the Year this year, because I would love to see Baldur's Gate 3 become the new Elden Ring for this guy. I would love to see Baldur's Gate 3 become just like Elden Ring to him, where it lives rent-free in his head for the next year, and then, like, the next year another non-Nintendo game ends up winning, and then that's the next game that lives rent-free in his head. That would be genuinely fucking hilarious. Like, I have never, like, you know, wished for anything like this, mainly because I'm not exactly the pettiest of human beings unless I really have to be. But, like, in this case, I just don't give enough of a fuck, dude. I'm hoping Baldur's Gate wins just to piss this guy off. I think we're just gonna end it off here, mainly because I just genuinely do not feel like going any further. I can only spare so many brain cells in order to try and make any kind of content on Harman Smith. But anyways, guys, that's gonna be it for today's video. What did we learn today? Well, we've learned that there's people that are still coping about pretty solid games that aren't on their favorite platform. But anyways, guys, if you guys enjoyed today's video, please consider leaving a like. That's very well appreciated. Leave a comment down below what you thought about the video, what you want me to talk about next, and also subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more content such as this. Also, go ahead and follow me on Twitter. I'm beginning to run out of jokes when it comes to my Twitter account. But anyways, guys, this has been Sanity, and have yourselves a nice day.